hang out on there is live. So there's about 30 seconds or so. Can you hear? Can you hear something coming out of there? Probably going to get somebody to come up on Facebook. Can you hear something coming out of there? Can you hear? Yeah, we gotta turn this one down. Probably gonna get somebody to come up on Facebook. The chat function's not working. That feature's disabled, so we don't have Q&A. Got this other on my other screen over here.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Well,
Heard something.
you weren't talking though.
You should be able to hear me in a second.
Okay. Whatever you did 30 seconds ago was working.
Well, what I did was I unplugged the thing. There's about 30 second delay. I got this one muted. Maybe more like a 45-second delay. It's about a minute delay.
When you're on, you're not now.
Okay, folks, so we're here. We made it. I guess you can hear me now. I had a headset on, and I think that was causing the problems. I don't know what the audio is going to be like, so bear with us on this. This is all a learning thing for us. We've never done a webinar before. We don't know very much what we're doing, but we're going to get it. And maybe the next time we do this, we'll be a little bit better prepared. We'll learn some lessons from this one. We'll apply it to the next one. So we do want to continue to do this type of thing, but it's just going to take some time to get it right. So I'm going to get one more sound check, make sure we're good to go. And turn it up just 1 second and see if you can hear something. Now there is about a 1 minute or so delay, so that probably shouldn't affect you out there very much. For me, it affects us because if we hear it coming back, then it's a problem. So if you are out there watching, please jump up on our Taxidermy Tech Facebook page and give me some feedback there. I got it on my other screen over here so I can see what you're putting in. If you got any questions, if you got any comments, if at any point you can't hear me or it goes out, let me know and we'll do what we can do to get it corrected. Again, this is a learning thing for us, so we expect that there's going to be some problems along the way. So far, I don't see anybody saying that they can't hear, so we're going to go ahead and get started. So I'm Ken Dorville. I've been doing taxidermy about 25 years, and I spent a lot of years up in Georgia. I was in the Army and doing taxidermy on the side. I got where I thought I was pretty good. I didn't know a lot of other taxidermists. I was reading out of a book or a video or anything I could get my hands on. Matter of fact, I didn't know any taxidermists at the time. And I knew that I wanted to do it. I happened to know a man by the name of Tom Sexton here in Pensacola back in the 80s. His brother and I went to school together. We're good friends. And I guess I'd heard somewhere along the way that he was a taxidermist, but I didn't really know, what caliber of taxidermist he was. I didn't even know that there were calibers of taxidermists. And so I happened to see something that he did one time, and it made an impression on me. And so I decided that at some point in my life, I wanted to pursue that on some level, maybe as a hobby, not necessarily as a job or a career, but I knew that I probably wanted to pursue it, like a lot of you would like to pursue taxidermy. I'd seen it on the walls at my uncle's house, and deer heads and fish, but it all looked the same, and it represented what I wanted to do. I wanted to hunt, I wanted to fish, and I think that's what a lot of us have going on in our mind when we see taxidermy. It represents some of the things that we like to do. And so that's what led me down that path. It was a couple years before I actually got into it. I got into it quite by accident, but by the time I did get into it, I realized that it was probably going to be with me the rest of my life in some way. We started a small part-time business, and up in Georgia, and I gained some customers along the way, and I really thought that I was good. My customers thought I was pretty good. Then one day I found myself in a room full of taxidermists from all over the country, and I got humbled. And so there began my real journey of learning in taxidermy. I started building that part-time business over the years. After my Army years were over, I continued to do taxidermy full-time, and at some point I sold out that business and decided to pursue teaching taxidermy. I have enjoyed that. I've done it for several years now. I did it previously with International Wildlife Design up in Georgia, and that was a good venture. We had quite a few people come through, made some friends there, some friends that are still friends to this day. And so I really enjoyed that. I knew that I probably wanted to do that again if I ever decided to open a studio again, which we did last year. We opened Expressions Wildlife Taxidermy Studio in Pensacola, where my wife and I grew up. And here we are. We decided somewhere along the way that we were certainly going to be able to offer training, and we have through our taxidermy tech programs. And it's a very deliberate program with some specific goals that I'm going to talk about here in a few minutes. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I know some of you come here to watch this deer head get mounted. And so we're going to do everything we can to get this deer head mounted in short order. I don't want to keep you here all night. But that's sort of my history and the history of me and taxidermy. You know, the fact that we teach taxidermy here doesn't suggest that's the only way you can learn it. And, you know, I've had some conversations with folks about that here recently. There's a lot of different ways to learn taxidermy. You can learn taxidermy in a book. I spent most of my time learning taxidermy out of a book. You can learn it in videos. I've watched a number of videos. But back when I was watching videos, I was watching VCRs. You know, somewhere along the line they come up with the DVDs and you know, and of course when the internet came on board, there's YouTube and all kind of places where you can watch videos of someone else mounting a deer head or someone else mounting a fish. And that's good. I mean, that's good to sit there and watch. That's what I did. That's how I learned. That's how I learned the basic skills. It took me a while. There's a long learning curve of just sitting there watching somebody and not being able to interact with them, ask questions, and see, you know, try to determine exactly what they're doing. And so, you know, the videos are good, but certainly maybe not the best, if there is a best. There's a couple other products out there, a couple other books that are out there on the market right now, and that's these two right here, a couple of magazines. These are trade magazines. This is Taxidermy Today magazine, and this is Breakthrough magazine. I'll tell you, they are worth their weight in gold. I had somebody ask me the other day, I think on the Facebook page, said, I'm about to get out of the Army or get out of the military here soon, and I want to pursue taxidermy. What should I do? And I told them, you know, before you pursue formal lessons or go buy videos or anything else, you subscribe to those magazines. You go to taxidermytoday.com and breakthroughmagazine.com and get those magazines. I think we get four of each a year. It may be $35, so certainly well within anybody's budget, I think. And there's a wealth of knowledge in those books. And the thing is they will energize you. They'll give you the desire to get out here and do some of this stuff. Associations. There's a lot of learning value in taxidermy associations. Taxidermy associations typically, I think there's probably no taxidermy association out there that I can think of that doesn't have an annual convention. Maybe there is, maybe there's not. But those annual conventions are very valuable. Number one, most importantly, you get to meet other taxidermists. If you're a state association, you get to meet other people in your state who do what you do or have your passion for taxidermy. And you can share ideas with them. You can talk with them, get their phone number, and call them later. I've established a lot of really good friendships over the years with taxidermists that I have met and at these conventions, at these annual conventions. I think that probably any association has its problems, some of them more than others. And I believe that if more of us members, more of us in the taxidermy industry would get involved. I'm guilty. I haven't been nowhere near as involved as I should have been in the past, but if if more of us would get involved in these associations, we see the real value. The Taxidermy Association they're not just there to look out for us as an industry. They're part of a broader coalition that represents and helps to protect our right to hunt and fish too. So it's just it's a broad spectrum, and I think that the taxidermy associations can be very valuable to us here in the industry. But those conventions, meeting those taxidermists, going to those seminars and watching guys mount deer heads and fish and birds and seeing their ideas, seeing their techniques, getting inspired, that's pretty important. The taxidermy competition piece is great. I think that's why most people go, and there's a lot of learning value there. What happens sometimes, and what certainly happened to me, is we get caught up in wanting to take something to these conventions that we're trying to solicit an emotional response from the viewer. And I see that a lot in taxidermy competitions. And again, I was very guilty of it. We see these mounts with these ice scenes and snow scenes and wild and crazy air scenes and just a lot going on, in a lot of these mounts. What gets lost in all of that is the technical aspect of the subject that you are working on. We're so concerned about the emotional impact of this bobcat jumping after this quail or whatever, or this bobcat coming down a snow scene or whatever. Those are the things we get wrapped around, and we forget that there's a technical aspect that we should be focused on. And I did that. Just a quick story. When I first got involved, or first came to a taxidermy convention, or first went to a taxidermy convention, I'd said earlier that I was humbled in a room full of taxidermists, and that's an understatement. I saw taxidermy like I'd never seen before in my life. I took about six pieces to that show. I knew that show was coming up probably a year ahead of time. I taxidermy competition, shoot, I'm going to that. And so I went to this thing with about 6 pieces. One of them was bobcat walking down a big snow scene. I put so much time into that snow and that rocks, and they didn't look good, in hindsight, but I thought they looked good at the time. And I went walking in there with all these pieces, and I saw all this stuff from all over the country that these really, truly gifted guys were bringing in. And I said, I ain't entered none of this stuff. And at the end, I only entered 1 piece in the show. So a lot of learning value lost there. I met a man there named Joe Rogers, and out of Abbeville, Alabama, I believe. And Joe gave me something that I needed at that point. That probably could have been the end of my taxidermy career, because I got my feelings hurt. Nobody had to say anything to me. I just looked around and I got my feelings hurt. But when Joe found out I didn't bring all my pieces in, I think we met in a seminar, and when he found out I didn't bring all my pieces in, he said, let's go out in your car and see what you brought. Well, I figured if only one person was going to look at them, then that's not too bad. So I took him out and showed him my pieces. And one of those was a bass coming out of a splash scene. Man, there was water going everywhere. And Joe looked at that and he said, I wish my first competition bass looked like that. And at that time, and you got to think, this is back 20-some years ago, that was a boost of my confidence. I needed that confidence to be able to continue to do it. I needed that confidence to be able to go into the next seminar, because I got my feelings hurt. A lot of guys go to these competitions and they get their feelings hurt. You got to remember what you're going there for. You're going there to learn something. And that's where I started reevaluating my priorities. And so I credit him a lot with giving me that extra boost that I needed to keep me in the game and get focused in the right direction. He didn't point me in the right direction. He gave me the confidence to get myself oriented in the right direction. And that's sort of what we try to do here, is give you some confidence and get you going down the right path. I'm going to talk about real quickly about one other area where you can learn a lot about taxidermy, and then I'm going to go on and talk a little bit about formal schools and workshops. Taxidermy.net. Kudos to Ken Edwards for getting that thing up and started years ago. I think it was 98, maybe earlier than 98. Somewhere around 98 is when I think I first popped up on the net there on taxidermy.net. It was already, I think, a pretty good community by then. I was there under Darvel and Net or something at the time. And then later when it changed over to the new forum, I became fish work, and I was doing a lot of fish at the time. I used to spend a lot of time on taxidermy.net. There's a lot of learning value there. There's a little bit of everything there on taxidermy.net, and there's a lot of folks that you can interact with that will, I'm telling you, they'll get you going down the right path for sure. A lot of really good people. I won't name any names. There are some politicians on there too, so you got to be careful. That's one of the reasons that I figured I'd better back out of it just a little bit. I usually go there, buy, sell, trade, or if I need to learn something, which is all the time. We never quit learning. I never quit learning. I don't think anybody quits learning. That's one of the first places I go if I need some information on something. So taxidermy.net, you can log on to taxidermy.net. You can set up a free account, wealth of knowledge for you if you're not already there. And that sort of brings us to the formal schools and workshops. And this is something you got to be prepared for. I think my program here isn't very much different than other programs. A lot of guys do one-on-one. A lot of guys do group sessions. We focus mainly on one-on-one. Previously with International Wildlife Design, we focused more at two-on-one. I've got to where I prefer to have one student at a time. A lot of times it may be a husband and wife here, and that's fine. No issue with that. There's, one of them is the focus, and the other's there to sort of assist and be part of it. And we have no issue with that. But we try to focus on one-on-one. But overall, our program isn't very much different than other programs. What we have to offer a student is basic techniques. I'm not here teaching competition stuff. And here, let me just step back and say this. If you think coming to a 5-day course is going to make you an expert, you are mistaken. We're not here to make you an expert. We're here to give you basic techniques. The benefit of our personal experiences in this business, a vision. You need to see what direction to go, and confidence. And I sort of said that along the way, leading us up to this point. And I'll say it again. Basic techniques, our personal experience, vision, and confidence. That's what we're here to give you. And I think that's pretty much what any taxidermy school or workshop has to offer you. We can't give you the experience to put you in that elite category of taxidermists. That's not something that we can do. There are folks out there that do that, that will take you at a higher level and move you even higher. And a lot of big names out there doing that kind of work. And I applaud them for that. But I'm here to help the guy that wants to learn the basic skills. And I think that we have a pretty good program with, we reduced the learning curve, put it that way. Really shortened the learning curve and sort of set people on the right path of understanding which direction that they need to go and have the confidence to get out there and do it. So that's pretty much what our program has to offer. As I said earlier, if anybody has any questions or comments or anything, please pop up on our the Taxidermy Tech Facebook page. Our chat function is not working here in this webinar thing we've got going on in Google here. So we're using the Facebook page. Did we have a question?
No.
Okay. So, and I'll say one more thing before we jump off into this deer head. This is not the system that we wanted to use for our webinar. There was another software system that I wanted to use, and we probably will use in the future once we get it figured out and get everything talking to each other. And fortunately, I stumbled across the Google Plus webinar system, and I kind of like it. It's pretty simple. It's something that we can continue to do until we get our other system online and functioning. This is something I want to continue to do. Maybe a couple times a month we can start out doing things like this, and we'll work on some different projects. I've got some other videos too that I'm going to post onto the webinar page that will cover some of the aspects of this that we've already done in prep, so we don't keep you here all night. A lot of the things have already been done, and I'm fixing to go. I'm fixing to be putting skin on the deer head. So that we don't leave you out of the rest of it, I'm going to edit all the rest of the video, and we'll post those in pieces on the webinar page here over the next few days. And that way you can go back and sort of use that as a reference. Okay, so as I'm working through this deer head, I'll be talking about certain things that we're doing, and first I want to sort of go through what's already been done. This is for your benefit. This is for those of you who have an interest in taxidermy, not necessarily coming to our course, maybe going to another course, or maybe you're thinking about pursuing it on your own. This is just gives you a little bit of exposure to it. I know there's some folks out there who do this for a living, who have indicated to me that they were going to come to this webinar tonight. That's great. If you got some ideas, throw them out there. Come up on our Taxidermy Tech page and give us a comment. You can call us too on our toll-free line, 844 Wild Art. I don't know what the number is. I never knew what that number was, but it's 844 Wild Art, and that's the only way I can remember it. And that's why we did that. So you can call us on that. I think it gives you two functions. One will take you to the shop phone. The other one will take you to a cell phone. And so either one, you can select either one of them. We're here and we'll try to answer your question or address whatever issue you got. And again, if you can't hear me or you can't see me at any point, put me a note up there on our Taxidermy Tech page. If the video goes out, I'll jump into Google and we'll reestablish the connection, and then I'll post something on the Taxidermy Tech Facebook page and tell you to refresh your page, and then that'll put us back on track. So what we've already done with this deer head is the form has already been prepared. We've done some sanding to this form, the reason that we do sanding is we want to make sure that our skin adheres to it, has something to adhere to. Making sure that that we get good adhesion, there's a number of things that have to occur. Number one, we need to have a properly prepared skin. Now, we can go on all day about what the properly prepared skin is. A lot of folks use raw skins. A lot of folks use tan skins. A lot of folks use those other category. I call it the other category. And I use some of the other category. But I primarily tan skins. We do a portion of our own skins, and we also send some skins out. It just depends on the subject. But most of our deer skins we do here in the shop. Back to raw skins. For years I did raw skins in the beginning. People dry preserve those skins, and they get a lot of stretch out of them. And for a lot of people, they're actually good to work with for that reason. You just get so much stretch out of them. And this is my personal belief about it, and this is what I tell people here in the course, but folks got to make up their own mind. My personal feeling is that we get that, what I call, for the lack of a better term, the 130% factor. And the 130% factor says that I can stretch that thing as wherever I want to. And the raw skin will stretch. If it's properly prepared, if it's properly thinned, that thing's going to stretch. But it's going to come back 100%. It's going to come back right to where it was, and then it's going to keep coming as it dries. You've seen rawhide over the stores at Walmart for your dog. It's a piece of rawhide about that big, and before they dried it, it was about like this. So that's why I call it 130% factor. It's going to come back 100%, right back to where it was, and then it's going to continue to dry up. So with a tan skin, I like to think that you get that 85 to 90%. That you've actually broke the fibers, you've lubricated the fibers, and so you're going to get the stretch, and it may not come all the way back to where it was, which is good. And then, of course, you have the other category. I'll get to the other category of that, what I mean when I say other, raw, tan, other. But I prefer the 85 to 90% factor. Now, if you understand these things that need to occur that I'm going to talk about here in a second, either of those conditions are fine, 130% or 85%. But you have to account for that. You have to understand that. And that goes to getting the right size form, for one. You know, a lot of times when we're using raw skins, we know we can stretch it. We're going to put it on the biggest form because that's what the customer wants, right? He wants the biggest neck he can possibly get. So we can stretch that sucker out. And when we put it on a big form, guess what happens? As it get back to 100%, back another 30%, guess what? We've got seams coming apart. We've got hair standing up in all different directions. We've got all kind of things going on. We got eyes pulling. We got lips pulling, everything pulling. And part of that could have been the form that we selected. So we want to make sure that we account for those factors, 130% or 85%. With the right size form, getting the right size form for the skin. I tend to go down just a little bit. Even with tan skin, I tend to go down a little bit because I want to be able to push it into areas. Getting the right size form, having the right fit. Having a properly prepared skin. I'm not talking about tanning or raw. I'm talking about properly tanned or properly prepared skin is one that's been shaved thin. Everything, all the meat, fat, and the hide itself has been thinned down. And that's the properly prepared skin. So we want the right size form. We want a properly prepared skin. We want a properly prepared form. Now, I know there's some taxidermists out there that would laugh at me in a heartbeat for sanding forms. Now, there's guys that have a better, more efficient way of doing it with sandblasters. Some guys even light their forms on fire. Pour lacquer, or lighter fluid on it, light on fire, and burn that stuff off. I have been known to leave them out in the sun on a pallet. Over time, it just makes it a lot easier. It sort of cooks the outer surface, makes it easier to come off. Dries that surface out, makes it easier to come off. So we want to, whatever we do, we do want to rough up the form pretty good. I actually sand them, and then I've been known to take a little puller here and go all over it. Give that glue somewhere to get down inside. So properly prepared, or proper size form, proper fit. We need a properly prepared skin. We need a properly prepared form, one that has a surface that the glue can adhere to and that can hold that skin in place. And then the last thing that I think is most important is moving the skin, taxiing the skin in the right places. Things like around the eyes, where we often see a lot of pulling up in this area right here in the tear duct, and even around here, around the bottom and the backs of the eyes, and especially so in the details. If we want to highlight those details a little bit, those jaw muscles and the veining that we see in a lot of these forms, and we see in the live deer, especially the shorter-haired deer, we want to be pushing that skin towards those details. We want to be pushing it towards those problem areas. We want to be pushing that skin up on the neck into those details to give it a little bit of slack, so that when it does start pulling back a little bit, it's not going anywhere. We've got good adhesion because we prepared the form properly, we prepared the skin properly. A properly thin skin is not gonna draw up as much. If it's thick, it's gonna draw up more. It's really gonna pull. If it's thin, it's not. It's gonna do it less. So all of those things combined really help the overall appearance of the deer, help keep the skin in those details and in these areas where we typically have problems and we see pulling. They can, I'll tell you, especially around the eyes, that can completely change the attitude of your eyes. If you get a good eye set and you get that skin on there and it's tight, it's hard to recover from that when it starts drying out and pulling. It's really it can really change the attitude of the deer. So that's what we've done so far. We've roughed this form up. We've got our skin thinned down a bit, but we've got this form roughed up a bit. I've already cut the lip line and put the septum in. Now you're going to see some of this in the videos that I'm going to post, the septum. And again, this is a commercial taxidermy studio. This is not, I don't typically mount competition, what they call, I guess, competition quality deer heads for customers on the street, because I try to educate our customers, but they like what they see on the wall when they walk in the showroom. And that's what's important to me. If they're happy with that, I'm also a businessman, so I have to be efficient in the way that I do things. We do put a septum in. I think it's necessary, but the kind of septum in that we put in is equivalent to the speed septum. That's essentially what we put in, and it's not the speed septum. I used that for years. I love it for commercial work. But we do something similar to that here with our deer here. And I'll show you that. You'll see that in the video. I've already done that. You'll see that in the videos when we post it. And of course, we've cut out the lip line. I've put a couple other anchor holes, in the eyes for the clay work that we're going to do here and around the ears. I've also got a little brain ridge here. It doesn't always happen that way with the brain ridge. I think it was actually a form. I think maybe John Reinhardt at one point was molded forms that had a brain ridge. But this brain ridge is for this particular set of horns, because when I bondoed it, when I went ahead and bondoed to do the preset for horns and I popped it off, the skull plate came off the bondo. And that happens sometimes, particularly with some of the newer forms that don't have a layer of wax over the wood there in the head. Either way, it fits, it's preset, so we're just about ready to mount this deer head. What I've done with the skin, and this is a tan skin, it was a sort of an iffy skin from the beginning. This did not, actually got a little bit of sewing that I need to do to this thing. This was done by one of our students here. It's not one of my customers' deer, but it's one I've been contracted to do. There were a couple of skins in there that was sort of iffy. This one was a little bit iffy too. There was some damage to it, but it's certainly a mountable skin and it will make a decent mount. But it is tan. This is a basic loop F, and I forgot to mention the others. The other, I talked about the raw skins and I talked about the tan skins a little bit. I use Lutein tan skins, but the other that I've recently used a few times, and I actually like it, I just don't quite understand it, is Crotan. I've mounted a couple of velvet. This deer right here is a summer deer. It's a velvet. It's an early fall deer actually. And, I did that with Crotan. I was a little concerned with Crotan that when you look at the skin, it sort of takes on the properties of a tan skin. I held some of those pieces of skin back so I could look at them over time, and it doesn't break as easy. It doesn't, at least to me, it doesn't seem like it breaks as easily. And so what I've seen is some of those skins, or some of those pieces of skin that I left back, they get really hard and they draw quite a bit. Now again, most of the folks that I know that use Crotan, it's a very simple system, and I love the feel of it. I love the way it shades. I love the way it mounts. It's just, I had that long-term concern about how much it was going to draw up. Haven't had any problem with this one right here. So, but I think it comes back down to being aware of those factors that we talked about a few minutes ago. The form, having a properly prepared form, having a properly prepared skin, properly thin skin, and using a good glue, and taxiing the skin into the right positions, making sure that the form is the right size form for the skin. So all those factors together, I think, are what has saved this particular deer, and most of the ones that have I've seen done by other folks who have really talked well about Crotan. So I like Crotan. I like it a lot. Just for me personally, long term, the jury's still out a little bit. But again, any of those ways work well as long as you account for those shrinkage factors and you follow those basic principles that I talked about just a minute ago. But this is a Lutein F skin. Again, we've got a couple things that we're going to have to sew up here a bit. I hate sewing as much as anybody does, but we're going to have to do it. I've also already bondoed the ears in here. Somebody said, "Oh my God, he's bondoed ears." But you know, commercial deer heads, I bondo ears in just about everything. And I've used ear liners on a lot of animals in the past. When I used to compete, I haven't competed at Taxidermy convention in 15 years. But when I used to compete, I would quite often with deer heads and some. Most of my smaller game, I've used ear liners. A lot of those ear liners we'd made ourselves. But it started with a bondo method. We'd create an ear liner from that bondo. We'd pull it back out, do a little bit of shaving, and a little bit of cutting, a little bit of thinning, and a little bit of sculpting, and create an ear liner that fit that particular animal. And I like that. But that's competition taxidermy. That's a whole different. That's a lot of time that goes into that. And we're trying new things. Speaking of new things, we're starting to work with manufacturing some eyes, and that's a long process. Not doing it for deer. That's not our thing. I'm sort of a fish guy by nature, but working a little bit of that. So don't never be afraid to try new things and experiment. That's what I used to do with my airliners. And, but when it comes down to commercial work, we're happy with the Bondo. Basically, we take about a golf ball size thing of Bondo, mix in a little bit of lacquer thinner or fiberglass resin. All Bondo is fiberglass resin with a filler in it. And so, but we use it to thin it down a little bit. I'll put a little bit of the Bondo hardener, put in a little bit of fiberglass chop, drop that ball inside the ear, and then work it down into the ear. You gotta make sure you get good coverage throughout that entire ear. That also is on the video for you, or on one of the videos that you're gonna see over the next few days. I'm gonna post onto the Taxidermy Tech webinar page. There on the website. But the Bondo ears work really good, and always have. And our customers have always been happy with the ears on their deer. And I think as long as you're getting a good sharp ear, a good tight ear, and getting a good position on them, that's what we're after. So it doesn't really matter whether you got an ear liner or you got a Bondo ear. But a lot less time in a Bondo ear. And time is money in this business, particularly when half of your customers aren't going to pick up their deer heads anyway. So, so we've got Bondo in this one. Really, the only thing I think we need to do to this is we got to do a little bit of throwing, and I'm going to do that for you. I'm not going to be able to show you that. I'm just going to have to do it, and then we'll move on. In fact, I'm not even going to. I'm not going to sew. Normally, I would sew those. These tear ducts got blown, and that's a common thing with deer heads. Tear ducts get blown. It's a shame. It doesn't have to happen. Often it does. And normally, I'm going to go ahead and sew those up real quick. And I said I wasn't going to keep you guys here all night, and I'm not. If you got to go, you got to go. But I'm going to sew these up. It's probably going to take me about 10 minutes to do it, and I'll try to chat with you while I'm doing it. Maybe you can see a little bit of it here. Anybody got any questions? I'm taking a little bit of strong thread. Bowstring to me is the #1 thread. Sounds crazy, I guess, but I've been using Dacron for years. And I'm happy with it. Some people use spider wire. To me, spider wire doesn't grip. I want it to grip. What we originally had planned here was to have a couple of different cameras going, and the camera that we're using now is a backup. The other one has the other camera is a really nice one. It's got great zoom on it. You know, when we run video off of it, we've got to manually focus it. We can really get it in to where you can see up close and personal, but unfortunately, Murphy got us. But we learned something from it, and the next time that we do this, it's going to be better. So we're using a backup camera. That makes it difficult for me to show this. I also have an AirPro camera, a wide-angle action type camera that we use for the videos. It's wide-angle, and I like it. A lot of clarity. You'd be surprised how much you can see with that camera, and you'll see when you see the videos. You'll see me here working on something, and then you'll see somebody on the other side of the room standing over there. It's got a really wide angle to it. almost done with this one. I know we didn't start on time. We probably, actually, by the time we started talking, probably what, about 15 after, quarter after, 7:15. So we're only about 45 minutes into this right now. I planned for this thing to go a couple hours.
Ken?
Yeah.
Jason Rich just said big delay from sound and video just now.
Okay. We'll have to keep our eye on that. There may have been something may have happened. Ask him. Can you respond to him?
Yeah, I'm responding.
Asking him what's his name?
Jason Rich.
Jason Rich just said that there was a huge delay between sound and video. I don't know if that's still happening or if that was an anomaly or what. But if that's happening, somebody else can validate that they're seeing that too. Jump up and let us know if we need to reboot this thing, and we can do it. That could be internet connection problems on our end. We've got pretty good internet here in the shop. We've got good sound internet system here. I guess that first one is done. And I would like for those of you who are here watching to please go to our Taxidermy Tech Facebook page and just give us a comment. Let us know, hey, I was there. So if there's 1 or 2 people out there, then we need to know that. If there's 40 people out there, we need to know that. That helps us determine the demand for these types of things. And I promise you, we're going to continue to do it, and we'll take requests. We needed to get on out here and get it done so we can see what the problems we were going to have were and work through it. It'll get better. I do have a vision of inviting some other taxidermists that I know, who I know would be interested in participating into this webinar, where we can have multiple video feeds. I think we're going to be doing that in the not too distant future. Once we get all of our technical issues ironed out with the system.
Jason just said that he went out and then went back to the link.
Yep.
And it was a lot better.
Okay.
So if somebody else is having a difficulty, they need to do what Jason did.
Yeah, that sounds.
Jason?
Yep. So basically, he refreshed. Yep. So if you do have problems, you get a break in the link, or you get a gap between video and audio, go ahead and refresh. Go out and come back in and see if that helps it. Could be any number of things that could cause that. And that's good feedback. That's good things to know. That's how we learn how to make this thing better, or know how to respond to certain types of things that happen. Definitely want to make this, worth your while. Again, if you're coming here watching this, hoping to become an expert, it's not going to happen. Not tonight. I'm sorry about that. Trim up a couple of places on these eyes. I think our skin is going to be ready now. So I've got those 2 tear ducts sewed up.
Is it where you can
Yeah, I might be able. We don't have good video quality on this one. If I had, here's the eye, and then we've got. Yeah, we don't have good video quality there, but we're going to do this again. We're going to do it again, and we'll have our good camera there working for us, and we can get some really good close-ups with it.
We appreciate their feedback.
Absolutely. All of your feedback's appreciated. That's how we get better. All right, so I think the skin's ready. I'm going to jump in here on these eyes. I don't think it really matters what kind of, everybody's got their preference of eyes, but I don't think it really matters what eyes you use. I like pre-rotated eyes. I like, I like the white square band. I like to see some of that white. I think most people do. Incidentally, I'm using a table stand. I don't typically use a table stand when I'm out deer. I do sometimes, but rarely. I prefer to use a floor stand. I don't think that there's a good stand on the market. I think a good stand is one that is completely bolted or concrete in the floor. And as far as the mechanical parts and that cinching down, at some point I think they're all going to strip out. If anybody's got a better idea of a stand they won't, I'm interested in hearing about it. I've been doing this a long time. I haven't come across one that's lasted that long. I've had these for maybe 6-8 months, and they're pretty good. They still slip a bit. So I'm going to get a little bit of clay going on down here. I don't always use clay on the eyes. I'm going to use it tonight. I like to use epoxy sculpt. And if you don't know what epoxy sculpt, it's an Ace product. Those of you who are not taxidermists or have not done taxidermy prior to now, that's for your benefit. Those of you who are in the industry, you know what it is. But I like to use it. I like to preset my eyes, and I like for it to kick, and I like to. I don't want any of that to move. With this clay, this critter clay, it doesn't dry a lot, doesn't shrink up a lot, but it does shrink up a bit. But I'm going to use it for this, and I want to sculpt in these eyes for you. I normally just put a little bit here in the back. That's my anchor point. That's what this is going to anchor the eye to. Now, folks want to know how to put that eye in there. And what angle you put it in. And what I will do is take a light, and I know I've got a light here. I'll take a light and I'll find that pupil. Some of these that are dark, it's hard to see the pupil. It is an elongated pupil, so we want it horizontal. Don't have your pupil up and down. You'll have a deer that looks like a snake. So you want it to be horizontal. And when that deer is level, his pupil is going to be level with the ground, straight ahead. I pull it to the back. And see, he's got his nose cocked down just a little bit, but that pupil remains level. You'll see on a lot of the forms with this type of pose with the nose down just a little bit, you'll see the little line that they put there on the form. I prefer to look at the pupil itself. And for commercial work, I'll eyeball it. You can get a level, and you need to be looking at it straight. This is one reason I like to use a mountain stand, because I like to have it up here where I'm at, so I'm not stooping down. Usually if you're stooping down to something, you're not getting the right angle on it, and it could be one way or the other and not be right. So I can't lift this one any higher, but if I'm looking at it straight on, that pupil, this is not a dark eye, so I can see that pupil pretty good, and it's level. I'll do the same thing with the other one. tell you what I remember mounting my first deer. I wish I could show you all that. You won't be able to see it real good. I got a picture of it. Not pretty. I remember mounting that deer. I remember doing all these things. Well, not all of these things, but I remember sitting there reading a little book, step by step, how to do it. Took me about 11 hours to mount that deer. All right, so those eyes are level, pupil level. Now, you know, big debate about pre-rotated eyes. These are not pre-rotated eyes. A pre-rotated eye that is sort of, you know, all the way around, with the exception of one side is white. I don't have any. I'd show you, but you look off in the catalog. If I could pull up my share screen, I could show you from a McKinsey catalog. The pre-rotated eye is not white on either the front or the back, and that allows you to get that tilt. You know, so if the deer's looking this way, or he got his nose facing this way, and you want him to be looking that way, you know, then you obviously are going to be seeing the front, the white in the front of the eye here, and in the back here. You know, and if you want him eyes looking this way, it'd be the reverse, the opposite. I use this sometimes, you know, in commercial work. And if I get into that conversation with the customer about how they want their eyes, but this is a standard eye. It's going to give me a little bit of white. I'm happy with it. All right, so the eyes are in. We got a little bit of sculpting work we got to do. Again, I normally do this, and this is what's terrible about the quality of the camera that we got. I have the camera. I had it working earlier, and I wouldn't normally tilt that up, but these stands I can't raise any higher, so I've got to tilt it up a little bit. I normally try to keep the deer level as I'm working on the eyes. You see, I got a couple where you can't see. And I'll try to get the video capture on this as well. I've actually got some a couple of ebook tutorials. Did an ebook 2005, I believe, Whitetail 101. You know, there's some things in there that I don't do anymore, particularly with respect to the preparation of the skin, the tanning of the skin. I do things a little different now than I did then. Certainly something that you can do. I'll make that ebook available, but in that ebook, there's a little tutorial I spy. It's, you know, commercial eye set, and it uses a little bit of geometry to get consistency in your eye work. And that's what we're after. You know, I want somebody to look at that deer and say, I know Ken Darville mounted that deer, you know, because I can tell by the eyes. I know a lot of guys out there who do great work, setting eyes. Beautiful work, beautiful. But this is the way I do it. This is the way I teach it. I'm not the final authority on it, but this is the way that I do it with my customers. And it's a technique. May not be your technique, but it's one I'm going to share with you. This is for consistency. I think one of the biggest problems I see in deer, speaking from my own perspective, is there's too much clay around the eyes. And they get this big look to them. I used to keep a couple deer heads around here that, you know, old deer heads mounted by somebody else years ago, so you can sort of see the difference. I don't have any, but I probably need to do a tutorial for that for our program. But it's a lot of times it's because of either the skin around the eye hadn't been properly thinned, or there's just too much clay. I think too much clay is usually the culprit. Big bug eye looking things. And so a lot of folks think I'm crazy when they come through this course and I tell them, look, you got too much clay there. They're rolling out their eyes. I say, you know, take half of that. And I can't believe it. But the truth, there's not a lot of clay there. There's not a lot of muscle in there. I mean, there is, but there's not. There's not a lot to replace. A lot of it is here on the form. It's been sculpted here on the form. So when we try to overcompensate and put a lot of clay there, we're asking for trouble. So I got a couple of dots here, and these dots represent 3 separate sections of the eye. got a little tool here. I've got this knife that maybe you can see with this knife, not the knife. Maybe and this is, unfortunately, because of this camera is not the best camera to be doing this with. If that one was working right now, we'd be in good shape. I can zoom in on this and you can see it. But this is something I owe you. But this breaks these little dots. I got one here, and then I've got one just to the right of it. They're at the top over the eye, spaced about an inch apart, or maybe 3/4 of an inch apart. But what it represents is one section, two sections, three sections of the eye. All right, so 1, 2, 3. And so what I'll do is, with that information, breaking the eye orbit itself into 3 separate sections, and knowing where center of the back of the eye is, dead center of the back of that eye, I take a piece of clay, not even as big around as a cigarette, probably half as big around as a cigarette. I ain't gonna say what it looks like. And we all did it in high school, right? But it's small. It's very small, and probably half the size of a cigarette, and around, and then probably as long as about a third of a cigarette. Very small, and even this may be too much. May not be enough, but it may be too much. And the idea is to lay it across the eye and just to meet the form, to meet what the sculptor has already sculpted into this form. So what I'll do is I will create a straight line from that first dot on the form, straight across the eye, just above the back corner of the pupil, and straight to the back of the eye. So from the first dot, straight line. This has got to be a straight line. I don't want it curved over, not yet. I don't want it curved over yet. Man, I wish you guys could see this though up close. It's just not something that we can do tonight. But I do owe you this. I want you to remember this though, and I will put your tutorial up so you can see what I'm talking about. But I want to keep this line here of clay straight. And then I'm just going to sort of pinch this up into the form. Now I think what you will be able to see here is what the eye set looks like once I'm done. And I just made a liar out of myself because there wasn't quite enough clay on there. Could have been more. I was hard-headed. I got to stick to my guns on that clay because it's too easy to put too much clay in there. So, you know, you got to put a little bit more there, which I just did, just a little bit, just so I could get that roll up into that muscle over the eye, the tissue over the eye. Just sort of pulling it right up into the form. What I don't want is when I look over here to look down the form and see it coming out again. I don't want to look down the form when I'm looking at the eye from behind and see it coming down the form and then have it going out again from all the clay that I put there. One thing that we do here is spend a lot of time on our sculpting deer over there. And I gotta show you this. We have a sculpting station, and I've started using this more recently than I had in the past. A lot of value with it. I had a great fellow that was here not too long ago, Ryan. Ryan may be out there tonight. Him and Debbie come to see me here not too long ago. Had a double course going on, mounted birds and did deer. Ryan spent a lot of time on this thing, and it really showed in his work. The purpose of this station is we use ear liners for the ears, and this is an oil-based clay, and they'll spend, you know, a good part of an entire day sculpting ears, sculpting the muscle butts, sculpting doing the eye set. And the reason that I do that is if I'm expecting you to do that before you put on the skin, and then expecting you to put everything where it goes under the skin, essentially resculpting it with the skin over it, then I've got to expect you to understand or to know what it is that you're looking at without being able to see it. I got to give you an opportunity to do that. I got to give you an opportunity to practice that before I just throw a skin at you. So we spent some time on the sculpted deer here in our sculpting station and work these eyes. So we get a feel for that. And I think that using Ryan as an example, there's a couple points that he got a little frustrated as he started doing his eye set. And we stopped and we said, remember how you did. Remember you started at the top, you went to the bottom and you went around. And having done that sculpting drill on this particular deer here, and then coming back to that after he put the skin on his deer, it really, really clicked quick. And we saw the eye come together really fast. Same thing with the earbuds. If you're using the Bondo ears and you're obviously using clay, or more than likely you're using clay for earbuds. And so if I'm to expect you to sculpt an earbud with the skin over the clay, then you got to understand what the earbud looks like without the skin. And so we spend a lot of time on the sculpting station, looking at reference. We talk a lot about interpreting reference. You can look at a flat picture, you can look at three-dimensional reference, but you got to know how to extract the information from that you need and then turn around and apply it to your mount. And that's the trick. That's the trick. And we use geometry here to do a lot of that. You'll see some of that in some of the tutorials. And of course, when you come here, you're going to get to practice that very thing. So we spent a lot of time on the sculpting station. And I would encourage you to do that too before you mount a deer.
And I just posted that picture to try and help them see the clay.
On the website?
Yes.
Okay, so we just posted the picture of this part of the clay work on the Taxidermy Tech site, the Taxidermy Tech Facebook page. So that's the top piece, all right? We're going to see this thing start to come together here a little bit. And the bottom is also a small piece of clay. Maybe the same size, maybe even just a little bit smaller. We all did it in high school, right? So I'm going to put that in the bottom, and I'm going to go from the front corner to the back. We'll make sure it fits. I'm going to put it in that little slot that's right there. There's a little gap right there. But I'm not going to push it up into the eyeball. I want to pull the very edge. I want to grab the very edge of that clay and pull it down into this muscle here that's below the eye so that it's one flowing motion. And I don't have clay coming out and then this bulge coming out from the muscle down. I want it to come off the bottom of the eye, and I want it to be one flowing motion. And one thing I learned about doing taxidermy, how much sculpting ability really helps you. If you can look at something and you can sort of reproduce it in clay, man, that's a good skill to have to help you with this. Now, what we're doing here, incidentally, you'll develop that skill. If you don't think that you have any sculpting skills now, you'll develop them as you go. I did ceramics as a kid and sculpted busts of people and animals, and I found it fun. I enjoyed it. So what we're doing here as I'm pulling this clay down is sort of getting that ball and socket look of the eye. And I normally I'll have a lot of pictures up here. You won't be able to see them. I had some pictures up here before. That's when this computer crashed right as we were going live. And I'm going to try to get this up here. Always looking at some type of reference. There's a lot of reference on Taxidermy Net. There's a lot of reference on Google, Pinterest. eyeball just laying against the skin there. And when you look at a deer mount, a lot of times you'll see these big bulges of clay around that eye, so it's not actually laying against the eyeball. It's a big bulge. And we want that to be sort of flat. We don't really want it to be, I mean, we want it to be full when we mount the deer, but we need for it to be flat against the eyeball to give it that sort of ball and socket look that I think a deer's eye should have. And maybe that's not always accurate, but deer can do anything with his ears, with his eye, but some of those things aren't going to be pleasing to the eye, hanging on somebody's wall. So you got to be. In general, that's what I'm trying to accomplish with this eye. All right, so now I want to bring this on around in the front. I've got the top, the bottom, and now I'm going to bring this, put me a little piece of clay right here in the front, and I'm just sort of going to connect this and smooth it on up into what I've already done here. And this is just, this whole exercise with this clay work, the system that I use to do it, this is my system. I mean, everybody's got their own. This one just happens to be mine. It works for me. Consistent. I don't want my work. I want it to be consistent. And I don't want it to be overdone. Into the eye, into the front of the eye, and out through that frenecula, lacrimal crease, and then on into the tear duct. I'm actually going to put a little bit of clay up here in this frenecula there in the front. The frenecula is this area right here. I don't know if you can see this or not, but it's this front, that little triangle area right there. And some of them it's more pronounced than others. It's a little triangular piece of flesh in there. It's not to be confused with the nictitating membrane, which is actually lays over to the eye. It's the windshield wiper of the eye. That's that little black band there. But forward of that little triangle piece of flesh is the frenecula. And then in this area right here is that lacrimal crease, and then that goes on down into the tear duct. So I always put a little bit of clay there so I can mold in that frenecula. I like that. I like that to be there. It's there on the live animal. And I'm not saying that everything that I do or end up on their mounts or that they do on their deer heads is accurate, or I'm not saying that we don't all leave certain things out. But that's one thing I don't like to leave out if I can possibly help, because I think it really, really helps the eye. Gives us a good look. And so we've got this lacrimal set. There was 3 pieces of clay, one across the top of the eye. And the key thing of this is keeping the amount of clay very little, not a lot. And then same thing at the bottom. We went from the front corner to the back corner. We've got that sort of ball and socket look. I wish you guys could see this up close. We're going to maybe get a picture of it, post it. Sort of clean it off so we can. Now, you'll ask him why you're doing that, because you're just going to put your skin on and all that's going to get messed up. But in truth, if I've got it looking how I want it to look on that clay right there, and I got the right amount of clay in there, that clay's there. So even if it gets shifted when I put the skin on, I just move it back, and I can get the same attitude that I sculpted on. That's what I'm after. So eye anatomy and keeping the amount of clay down to just small amounts. You can always add a little bit more, but if you add a lot in the beginning, then you're going to have problems. So, bear with me just a second here. I know I'm running this thing long, but you can't stop. Bear with me just a second. Yep. All right, good. All right. My lovely wife and assistant square me away, as always. She's the real boss. I'm just the employee. So that's one eye. I'm going to jump over here and do the other one. Hopefully you can see it. But I'm going to work a little bit quicker with that one. If you're out there and you don't agree with anything I'm saying, I understand. I respect everybody's opinion about things. I think that's what gets us in trouble sometimes as taxidermists. We don't, you know, I'm not saying me or anybody that's watching this webinar does that, but you know, sometimes we don't respect other people's opinions about things. I certainly do. I find myself learning things all the time. I'm not so set in my ways that I can't change the way I do things. Croton, perfect example. I'd have never thought I'd have done croton. And I said one day when nobody was looking, I'm going to try it. And I tried it, and guess what? I liked it. Jury's still out long term, you know, but that's just me. That's my upbringing. But I'm willing to do something different than I've been doing. So if you got a different idea about how to do something than what I'm doing, I'm by all means share it with me. So I'm going from, I got this one broke down the same way, and I got two dots drawn right here to represent 3 sections of the eye. I know you can't see that. I don't know if you can get a picture of that. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a number on here. 1, 2, 3 sections. To mount a deer head, if you come here for a Whitetail 101 course, this is the same way you set your eyes over and over again. You break the eye section, and then you lay your clay, you build gives them reference, it gives them direction, it gives them vision. And again, I used Ryan. You know, Ryan's not the only one that I think has benefited from this, but it was interesting. This is one that happened recently. I watched him. You know, and he mounted 2 beautiful deer heads when he was here, and I watched him get a little bit frustrated with the eyes there. I said, "Brother, stop. Yes, it's all about the process. Stick with the process." And this is one thing that's everything we do in taxidermy. It may not look like it's coming together. You can't get yourself frustrated. Stick with the process. And that eye just started coming together quick as he went around that eye and followed the same methodology that he used when he was on that sculpting station. It started coming together. And that was confidence. Get a straight line. I did it again. I don't need much clay in there, and sometimes I'm guilty of not putting enough, and I need to put a little bit more. But I I can't stress it enough how easy it is to put too much clay on the eye. See what I'm doing with it. I'm doing the same thing I did on the other side. And I owe you something here, folks. I owe you something here. I'm taking a smaller piece, just like I did at the top. I'm going from the front corner of the eye to the back. I'm going to pinch it off. I'm going to press it down just at the bottom, not the top. Where it's laying against the top, or where it's laying against the top of that lower eyelid, I want it to stay against the eyeball, but I don't want to press it in flat. I just want to grab the lower edges and pull it down into that muscle. It's here. So easy to put too much clay here. At the same time, you want to make sure that you don't have any depressions. You want to make sure that we don't end up with a depression down here. We want it to roll right into that muscle there, lower part of the eye. A lot of these forms are different. They're generally the same. A lot of folks have asked me, especially those that come here, maybe have a different taste in forms. We all have our different tastes in deer forms. I'm no different than anybody else in that respect. There's some that I want to try that I haven't tried before, but there's a few McKenzie forms out. Use those a lot. Years ago when I was in Georgia, I used them quite a bit. The musculature in those forms was just very, very popular. And they seem to fit our deer a lot better. And I'm going to put a little bit in the front for that carnuncula. I went through that one a little faster than I did the other one. I talked through the other one a little bit longer. But I used the same exact method. Just use a little bit of this water here to smooth that clay down. Use this brush to sculpt it out just a little bit. See if there's any places that I need to reduce the amount of clay that I got. I think Revolution is the one that I want to try next. I haven't tried those forms yet, but I do want to try them. It's a good looking form. Got several good looking forms. A little bit too much on the pitch up there at the top. You got to remember this clay is gonna draw up a little bit. So if you got too much of a pitch in the front of the eye, in other words, if it comes high, you can bet you're gonna have eye more wide open than you want. This is one reason I like to use epoxy sculpt for my eyes anyway. But I didn't do it for this. So I like to have it completely set before I actually mount the deer. And of course, we don't have time to wait for epoxy sculpt to set here tonight. So put me a little slot here in the tear duct. add a little bit of that lacrimal crease right there. We've got the tear duct here, we've got the lacrimal crease just forward of that, and then we've got the carnuncula just forward of that. The carnuncula, again, that little triangle piece of flesh that's right there in the front corner of the eye, really, really does. Just a little bit.
Jason, if you can hear, let me know if you're able to get back volume. He said it was lost. He could hear, but the video was lost.
Did he reboot?
Right. I said to refresh, and then we'll see if he can.
Let's see what we got here. I should keep that up and just keep the volume
Yeah,
on.
and we can tell if. Yeah, that's what he said. There's a deer head in the middle.
Okay, so we may have a problem.
Yeah.
Right here to join the art.
It says click here to join the audience.
Okay, ask him if we have audio. Looks like we may have lost video.
It says lost the video, has mounted deer head in the center, and he can hear.
Okay, so he can hear. All right, so looks like that's what we've got too. So what I think what we're going to probably do is we're going to take about a 5-minute break or so and reset. I'll send that. I'll post that information on the Taxidermy Tech. You'll go back and refresh. It's a good time to go get you something to drink, go to the bathroom. For those of you going to stay with us, assuming you can hear me right now, and I'll go in and I'll reset this thing and post a new one to the website. All you should have to do is refresh once I post the update to the Taxidermy Tech Facebook page. All right, so we'll be back in just a minute.